Listening to this entire interview of Young Thug talk to Big Bank, Free Young Thug has a whole new meaning. And I want to talk about that.
Y'all already know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on.
What is going on, you all? This Young Thug drama has been doing a lot the last couple of days. So Young Thug and his prison phone calls have been leaked the last couple of days, and it's been drama after drama after drama. From the audio of him admitting to cheating on Mariah the Scientist back in 2022, him giggling about that, to him talking about Outkast and Andre 3000 didn't put nobody on, to him even mentioning Future, who is supposed to be his brother, his bestie, and how Future, what the things he was saying about Future made a lot of sense, how Future cares more about the girls that are way younger than him than his own kids. He was basically talking, chatting, and in this interview, we hear Young Thug kind of explain that he was going through a lot, that him being confined 23 hours out of a day and only thing he has is a phone call, he was just talking. He was mentally gone. And I think that's important as we talk about Free Young Thug, because I don't think that Young Thug is free. As I said in my previous video, being incarcerated is not a human thing. It is inhuman. It is inhumane. And that is why you hear so many abolitionists and activists and organizers talk about abolish prisons, because of what it does to a person mentally. Not just physically, but mentally. And we don't talk about that enough. And it's interesting hearing Young Thug be honest about this and how there is this need to present as, I can handle it. Like, I can take it. I can be a man. This is what a man's supposed to do. This is street code, all of these things. And even in his pursuit of coming off like he can do these things differently than someone like a Gunna, who he claims snitched, it still left him being completely empty. And I want to hear more black men talk about this. In this interview, it felt like a therapy session. It felt like I was watching a conversation with someone who needed therapy, if I'm being completely honest. And shout out to Big Bank, because I thought this was a good interview. It actually helped humanize Young Thug in a very inhumane experience that Young Thug had. We go back to learn about Young Thug's upbringing and him sharing that he lost his brother at a very young age, and he saw his brother's life be taken in front of him at a very young age. And as someone who has lost a brother as well, it changes you. Losing a sibling, someone who you grew up with, it changes you, especially when they are young. It's going to change you no matter what. Losing someone, grieving someone, even grieving a relationship with a former friend, it affects you, especially if somebody you've been in community with, someone who you grew up, it's going to change you. And we see Young Thug in this, process this in real time. I actually felt like I wanted to turn it off, because this was a private conversation between two grown black men who need to unpack all of the harm that they have experienced. And I appreciate Big Bank for making it somewhat of a safer space for Young Thug to share his emotions and things. So I know I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but I will say, like, this coming off of like watching this interview, it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing because I came in this, to be honest, I don't really care about Young Thug, street code, all of that. I just really do not care. I still don't care about certain things, but I care about the conversation of black men in situations and predicaments that Young Thug are in, because this isn't just Young Thug. There are so many other black men who are in this environment going through this, who are also being snatched on the streets from Trump's administration pushing for National Guard members to be snatching folks off the street and preventing crime in DC, Baltimore, and even Chicago. I mean, we just saw a meme of Trump talking about going to war in Chicago. We see even this week, ICE snatching people off the streets who were protesting ICE, taking people off the streets and putting them in vans and taking them away. And we don't know who these people are. They're not identifying themselves, and how the justice system is okaying these things to happen. So the reasons why I am interested in this conversation is for us to understand how harmful this system is. I feel like we've been living in this system for so long that we think that this just how it's supposed to be. This is law and order. But who gets to be the person to enforce the law? Who is the one that is suffering in the hands of quote unquote law? When we're talking about and joking, actively joking about an administration and a party, a political party, doing things to protect people like themselves from being outed because of these files. Like, we're joking about these things, but this is the same justice system that is calling what Young Thug did and all of his co-conspirators or whatever, these actions illegal. All of these things. Yes, they harm some folks, all of these things, but yeah, you black men, y'all gonna go to jail, period. Like, lock them, throw them up, prosecute them, throw them away. In the words of, y'all know the video I'm referring to. But yes, this is what's happening. And look at what is being done right now with these Epstein files. And I'm not arguing any of these things are right, but who is in charge? And I feel like Young Thug, for the most part, kind of just showed us how scared black men are of the state, how fearful they are. And the question I'm asking is, what is your limit? What is your price? Because the price for your freedom may be different from mine. Young Thug wasn't interested in doing certain things. He's not finna snitch. He's not finna rat. It was different for Gunna. It affected him mentally to the point that he was probably able to be manipulated in this Alford plea to say these things. And Young Thug is looking like you let them get to you. And as I have said in my previous video, even the one we did with Olay and Friends talking about Cardi B, I'm no longer interested in this discussion about these people are not smart enough to understand these things because they don't read books. They don't want to. They have a whole analysis. Young Thug has a whole breakdown of what's the difference between how Gunna spoke and how he ratted versus Unk or whoever. How it was different because he did this, he was able to manipulate, and these folks understand. They have their own constitution, again, of what is snitching or what isn't. Some years ago, you heard a lot of men talk about not doing interviews, not speaking, all this chatty patty gossiping. Not just Young Thug on the phone, quote unquote, pillow talking to Mariah and other folks, but also y'all are on podcasts having a very public discussion between two people. This would be quote unquote female type things, depending on who you ask. For the most part, a lot of men so many years ago would consider this female stuff. Like, they still do. But now we see men running to microphones and podcasts having discussions about these things. Like, it's just, times have changed. And I think for me, we're fighting the wrong battles. Like, this conversation between ratting and who snitched on who, and we're seeing Young Thug like be upset with Gunna and trying to make it seem as though, and this is just my own opinion, he's really hurt. And I get that he is hurt by that, but you are a grown man. And I feel like Gunna being successful in those street codes, because he even said it in this interview, is that once you do that, you got to stay away from the street code. You can't go out. You can't be doing the street stuff no more. If that's the case, if you followed that same thing, you wouldn't be even close to Drake. You wouldn't be even defending Drake. You wouldn't even be comparing Drake and Kendrick. So it's a lot of inconsistencies for me that doesn't add up. It doesn't add up to me that you're saying that these things, like you can't do that, and yet y'all know that the street stuff is what Drake plays in. Like you know that he is these things, but you do not care because it benefits you. And I feel like the only reason why we're getting this interview and this sit down discussion is because it has went nuclear. That Young Thug realizes that it might be very hard to come back from this, and he has to stop the bleeding. This interview may have done that, if I'm being quite honest. This interview may have stopped it a little bit because it was able to humanize Young Thug of why he feels these type of like ways. But I'm going back to, it took 6 months for you to put out music. You came out, like Big Bang said, and you were playing. Like you were not interested in any of these things. And I get trying to quote unquote adjust back into society, but you took it upon yourself to actively be dragging Gunna every single time instead of just saying, hey, I don't want him no more. You brought it to the public. That was a private thing. And we can go back to how being incarcerated changed you, how you being in that environment, living in poverty, changed you being a young black. We can have those discussions. And I think it is time for black men like Young Thug to have these conversations. Like, I want to see more of this with folks who understand the said system, because these folks have the experiences as well as the some of the language. And I feel like if they connected with folks who are anti-police and abolitionists and talked about these things, I yearn for that. Like, I want that. We've seen that with other artists. We've seen that with even No Name, how she was called out for things back some years ago. And now she's out here promoting book clubs and trying to get black folks in community and to read, to understand the worlds around them. And I just feel like it would be so much powerful if we saw like this being used in a better way than two men going back and forth. It's only one person having a discussion about how hurt they are. Like, he looked at Gunna as his brother, and you are just acting like a flailing child, upset that these things happen. You have a right to feel that type of way. But now all we see is you constantly go at this person who has not said anything, who Big Bang even says in the interview, hey, we had a private conversation and I talked to Gunna as soon as he got out. And he said that he don't want to sit down, talk. He don't want to do no interviews. He ain't trying to talk about any of that stuff. The whispers about he ain't messing with me until I talk to him. Until he says that, that's what I'm taking it. That's what he told. That's what Big Bang said. That's the conversation he had with Gunna. And Young Thug felt that. Even in that, he did not react and process it. And I appreciate Big Bang asking, how did you feel besides the performative? How did you really feel? How did you really feel about that? Like, get down to those emotions. Stop this performative stuff, because none of y'all are following the street code. Like, none of y'all are really doing that. Like, let's cut this BS out the way. None of y'all are out here actually living this quote unquote life. We're all out here surviving. We're all out here surviving a very corrupt system. And y'all are out here using this time like you're upset with this man for the things that he has done and have been continuously attacking him. I also want to talk about these leaked calls, because I feel like, as funny as they are and we're reacting to Young Thug being quote unquote messy and walking to the telephone like Wendy Williams doing Hot Topics, it also shows you the egregious things that the state does. They lost this case. Someone was able to access. Yes, the freedom of information exists and people could have asked that, but Young Thug even shared that his team worked against that stuff not being able to be released. So someone downloaded those calls And it was probably a corrupt people in within the police department. It happens all the time. Have you ever been in a car wreck and you start getting phone calls, like folks blowing your phone up about you need to sue? I've experienced it a couple of times. The leaks that came out with Justice Smollett during his whole ordeal, the system is very self-serving. When we see the police being scrutinized for things, black folks being unalived, all of these things, we don't see these type of leaks. So I get folks, I get that people don't like Young Thug, and I get folks are laughing at this, but we also got to be honest about the system and how messed up that is to be leaking stuff like that for the purpose of this, how they protect their own. And I appreciate even Grits and Egg podcast coming out and doing the TikTok talking about these things, because it is funny to some folks, but we need to talk about how harmful the state is and the law is and how they do stuff like this. Leaking things to the public. Like, yes, what Young Thug said, a lot of those things were like messed up, but it wasn't necessarily like harmful. It wasn't harmful. Yes, it's messy for him to be on the phone talking and chatting. Folks chat, people talk. None of us want our private phone calls. Well, these calls were not quote unquote private because they were being recorded, not for assurance purposes, but they were being recorded. They were on the line, but none of us want our private calls released like that. Because what is considered private when we are living in a very surveillance state where people are buying stickers to put over meta glasses to record folks without their consent, how you can be going viral on social media without even knowing it because somebody has recorded you without your consent. So you don't want those type of things. So we need to talk about the levels of which this stuff affects all of us. Yes, what he said was messy, but what is the intention of it being released? What is the intention of these calls? Because is this something that is, hey, he actually was doing some harmful stuff and it is a gang and all of these things? No, this is to diminish his reputation. Like, that's what it's for. I folks need to understand it, because these calls are from a year or so ago. These are not like, these calls have been like a year or so ago. They've had these recordings for a minute and waiting for the opportunity to leak it. So again, back to the intention of why is it being leaked to the public? We have to understand that. Young Thug sharing him being incarcerated 23 hours out of a day and 1 hour free, and how that changed him, how that affected him. Again, I appreciate him sharing that, because none of us are built for that. None of us. None of us are built for any of these things. And I think the grace that Young Thug is kind of requesting from the public, that's the reason why he's doing this interview and sharing, hey, I was messed up. That same thing can be applied to Gunna. Gunna hasn't said these things. You don't want to hear him. And you don't have to hear him. You don't have to hear him, but you don't think he was messed up? You don't think he was? You were in there longer than him, but he was messed up too. And the system probably did manipulate him to thinking that this was not going to hurt. Being incarcerated changes you. I find it ironic that Thug does not want to hear what Gunna has to say and what's the reason. That same thing can be said about, we don't want to hear the reason why you did these things. The same grace that you are requesting essentially from the public, because let's be clear, this interview is about your public perception of how you can clean this up. That's why you're no longer doing the interview with Aiden Ross, because the public reception of that would have been even worse. You're trying to clean up. He's trying to stop the bleeding. So this is what this is like. You have a master too. We all have a master. All black folks, we all have a master. And the master is the state. And once we realize that the state is holding the whip and getting us, we'll be more understanding of what we're dealing with and what is truly going on. Because you was out here telling them that you're no longer going to be in Atlanta. You're not going to be in the metro. You're not going to work with said folks. You're not going to speak to folks. You basically said yes, ma'am, and yes, sir, too. All of y'all did. None of y'all are out here actually doing any and putting your lives on the line for something meaningful other than just your survival and your rich and your wealth. Y'all ain't out here. You don't see all this stuff that's going on right now? The stuff that was happening during the uprising in 2020. Y'all wasn't out here getting active. These are the same folks who come to and locking y'all up. I didn't see none of y'all out here doing that. I don't see y'all out here pushing, y'all talking all this mess and these things. I'm like, okay, if y'all was really doing something, ice should be melting. No shade. If y'all was about that action, ice would be milkshakes out here. If you get what I'm saying. But none of y'all is getting active like that. And yes, we can have a conversation about how these things are created to have us infighting. This is why we need to be reading and listening to folks who have already gave us the blueprints of what we are dealing with. So this conversation of I'm not reading or not interested in things that don't affect me, like we've heard from some artists, it affects all of us. All of us who are Black, all of us who are marginalized, who are dealing with this. So yes, I am feeling a little bit empathetic after listening to this interview. It did work. I do think it was a very smart decision to not do the sit down with Aiden Ross. The fact that you even sat or were thinking about doing one is quite alarming. It doesn't also explain how you treated Mariah the Scientist. Like, yeah, you messed up in all these things, but I feel like for Young Thug, he didn't want to realize it until he got caught. And there's something very weird, if I'm being completely honest, about this man, like, now apologizing to this light-skinned woman. Because we never really see, like, men like Young Thug own that they did something wrong, like, to this degree. Like, we just, like, the respect that y'all have for women who look like Mariah the Scientist is quite fascinating for me to witness. Like, the way y'all beg for their acceptance while also still being disrespectful to them. So it's like, what is the point of being a pick-me when you're going to be discarded for the next? What is the purpose of being this thing? Because you knew what Young Thug was giving. Yes, we can say that Mariah the Scientist is young and all of the things, you know, I'll let y'all say that. But to be on here giggling on the phone and they say she look like Rihanna. Well, that's the type of things that men, like, you are hearing this man explain the folks he hang around. You know how these men are. Like, let's stop playing. And y'all be thinking sometimes that y'all are going to be different. And I'm not trying to come hard on Mariah the Scientist. I'm sure she's going through some things and feeling a certain type of way, but it's nothing different than what the other Black women have experienced with these rappers and how they talk about them. Yes, like, yeah. You thought you were different. And I think a lot of folks like Mariah the Scientist might want to think about that. Like, you feel like that you are going to be treated differently because of what? Because of their desire for you? This physical thing? I don't know. You're still a woman at the end of the day. And these men are still very heavy in the misogyny. Very heavy in it. He didn't really care. So those are my thoughts. I have some more, but we're going to keep it light because I ain't going to be talking 30 to 40 minutes about this. But again, so many things came from this. I probably will be talking about it more because to hear a Black man talk about being incarcerated and how that affected him, I feel like is a conversation that we should be listening to. Tell me your thoughts below. Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk y'all later. Bye.